Things might get weird.
Yeah.
Welcome to our life.
Yeah. So we've talked to our oldest two, and they're totally aware.
Of where you're at, or
Where
what do
I'm
you
at,
mean
yeah.
aware?
Yeah, they're totally aware. I haven't told them the whole story, but they know the story, and we have explained to them just the nature of kind of who we are as human beings, right? And that choice is the ultimate non-negotiable, right? We have to maintain choice, and you have to choose, and you have to figure things out on your own. So with Kalel specifically, so he's 17, so 2018 is when I stepped away, so that's 6 years ago, right? So he was 11, 12-ish when this all went down. And people are coming over, hey, it's time to ordain him, right? Yeah. And so I told Kalel, I was like, here's the way it works in the institution. This is what they do. You turn 12, you go have an interview, and it really doesn't matter what you say. They'll say you're worthy, and you'll get the priesthood. And then you'll move through the ranks as you age. And then I said, if this is something you're interested in, let's study it together. And we'll read what the books say about what this thing is and how it is to be obtained. So I put together a course for him. Like, read this, study this. We'll talk about it. And then you can come to a conclusion of what that means and what makes sense for you. And the books say that no man takes this honor unto himself, but he that is called of God, as was Aaron. Some people will say, yeah, Moses called Aaron. And my perspective on that is that the Lord already told Aaron. And he knew when Moses had called him that this is what God wanted him to do. And the pattern is also found in Alma, chapter, why am I not thinking it? 13. So the priesthood chapter, right? And I think it's verse 12. It's on the bottom right side of the page. Anyway, he actually lays it out. This is the pattern, right? So Alma says, there was, men were called because of their righteousness, and they were ordained in a manner that thereby the people might know in what manner they might look forward to Christ for remission of their sins, right? So these people who obtain this power were supposed to be examples of Christ on this earth in the flesh, so that people could go, I want to be like that. I want to be like him. And then they could follow that same course, right? And so all this stuff. But then he says they were called with a holy calling. They were ordained with a holy ordinance. And then they took upon them the high priesthood forever and after Lord, the Son of God. Okay, so first they were called. Who called them? It wasn't a man. God called them. God called them to the priesthood. Then someone on this earth who had it ordained them to an office in that priesthood, right? Because the priesthood isn't the office. An office is just a position of governing authority within the body of the priesthood, right? And then you make a covenant. You say, yes, I will obey the laws of this order. And as my obedience maintains itself, I will obtain the powers of this order as well. and this was one of the things I learned by going through the Book of Mormon, right, was this pattern. I remember reading that in Alma, and it was like, bam, like that. I remember being told that's the pattern. Because I was so upset, if you remember, I was so upset about the priesthood, right? How do I get this? How do I obtain this? What's going on? And I was reading through it, and it was like, that's the pattern. And I was like, there it is. Like, there it is, right? And I was like, well, if that's true, then it has to exist elsewhere. So I went back and read the experience that Joseph and Oliver had when they were called by John the Baptist, right? So they had that experience on the Susquehanna River, right? Same thing. John showed up, called them. You have been called, right? Yeah. And then, he actually laid his hands on their head and gave him power, right? And then Oliver ordained Joseph, and then Joseph ordained Oliver. And then they baptized each other. It's like, there it is. That's the pattern. They got called by the Lord, right? Through an angel, right? You're called to this power. You're being ordained as priest or whatever it was, right? Now go perform ordinances now because you're now in this position, authorized position, right? And then they can move forward. Same thing happened with Melchizedek priesthood. So anyway, the pattern was there in the books, and I walked through that with Kalel. Like, this is not an earthly thing. This doesn't belong to any man. This is literally the power of the gods, and they are the ones that decide who gets it and who doesn't. It does not matter if someone lays hands on your head. It doesn't matter who they are or what they are, unless they are a direct messenger of the Lord, and you have already received that calling yourself, right? So I explained that to him, walked him through all the doctrine of the scriptures, and I said, this is on you. You can totally go through what the institution does. I don't care. This is your life. This is your choice. The only way you evolve and become a higher spiritual being is because you connect with the Lord in the heavens yourself. I can't do it for you, right? And so he went through his own process and stuff, and they kept coming over, like, hey, we want you to come, and he would go to church, and he'd come back all the time and be very frustrated because of the lack of content, I guess. You know, most of class time was spent disciplining.
Trying to get the kids to listen.
Yeah, rather than actually having instruction or discussion, things like that. So he really struggled with that, and then they would say, oh yeah, we need to ordain you, and he's like, I'm not ready. Yeah. I don't know if that's what the Lord wants me to do. I have not received that for myself. And there was always this narrative of, oh, that's not how it works, right? You can just go through, and we decide if you're worthy, kind of thing. So he's never been ordained. He's still an unordained member. And to this day, none of his friends know that he doesn't go to church.
That's what I'm like. Is this
he actually had a friend.
shareable?
Yeah. So he had a friend. He had a friend that
we can cut it out if you
can ask him.
Okay.
He had a friend that started to have conversations with him about church and scriptures and all that stuff. And Kalel ended up telling him where he was, and his friend was shocked. He's like, "You were the most like churchy, whatever type." Yeah, he's like, more than anybody I know, and you don't even do it. And it kind of threw for a loop for a second, but
yeah, because he's been taught that you have to be living in a certain way to be like that, and so it was actually something he'd never experienced before. Right. This kid is like, wait, that's an option? Like, I didn't know that it was even like that, which is good to see before, because he's going to go on a mission. Yeah. So then he can see, different people live differently. You don't have to be in this institution to be a good person.
For sure.
So it was an experience that he had never witnessed before.
Well, and it's hard that kids can't just share that with their friends normally.
Or their parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that's the culture.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Fear around it not being followed.
Does he feel that way, that he can't share that with his friends then? Or is it more just so that it doesn't
He just doesn't want to ruffle any feathers or turn things up that don't need to be turned up. Like, there's no, I don't need to, his position is I don't need to broadcast it. I don't need to tell people this is, I don't have anything to prove. Yeah. Right? I'm not fighting with anybody.
Good for him.
And then it's like, there's no reason.
Don't ask, don't tell.
But if people have a question, he's had friends ask questions and he tells them.
There you go.
So there's a couple that know that's where he is. But what's weird is, though, he'll go to seminary too.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, I'm interested. Well, I'll take this class and take this seminary. And other times he won't. He's like, yeah, that's not it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like he chose seminary. He's like, I decided I'm going to do seminary. I think it's good. I'm going to go do all that again and see what it is. And so, yeah, he's just.
Which is probably a little bit easier of a place, because for him to go and learn, like he was saying before, it's like discipline. It's just a whole discipline time.
For sure different.
Where this is a little bit more established. The kids are a little bit older and they can, anyway. Yep. So it might be easier.
So that's the approach. The approach is I tell them where I'm at. We talk through where we're at with stuff, and that there's some questions and there's some unknowns and there's some challenges with some seemingly contradictory experiences. This is what this says and this is what I experience. And so it's very open. Like, I don't know. I have these experiences. I have some of these beliefs. This is what our family history is. And it's a matter of we need to find the things that are true and real. Like, reality is a huge part of our discussions, so we can step away from the cloud of theory and the cloud of conditioning and the cloud of whatever else that can keep you from searching and pondering.
Yeah.
Well, and
praying,
like,
right?
hearing what God is actually saying, right? In your
Sure.
quote,
Oh,
and what
yeah.
you're saying, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with our daughter, she's starting to get to that point, and this is where the whole classes come in too, right? And it's when they are emotionally and intellectually prepared, not prepared, that's not the right word, when they're ready because of their own maturity,
Yeah.
then it's, okay, let's run you through these courses of the Great Debate so that you can have this breadth of information about the world and how it works and how people have worked and what the psychology of belief has been throughout the history of the world. And we're no different than the people were 100 years ago or 5,000 or 30,000 years ago, whatever it is, right?
And it teaches how to ask questions. Like these classes we're talking about, it's the idea of here's information, and it's not just taking, okay, that says this. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Or what do you think
Right.
about what this means? It's not just, so it's a very different type of education where you're learning how to think.
Yeah.
So do you agree? Do you disagree? We discuss it. We read broken books. We read whole books, and we read theory, and we read the great writers of history and what they've thought about stuff and all that. So it allows us to then take them through this experience of here's the world. Here's what people have thought. What do you think about
What do you
this?
think?
We're going to go read what the Zoroastrians thought about religion, right? Or we'll read what the Greeks thought and the Egyptians thought, and we'll read what the Hopi thought, and we'll read Chinese theology, which is so weird. And
I know
I'm
some
like,
of the stuff it's like,
but
that
there's
is
millions
wild.
of people that
Yeah.
have believed this throughout time.
Well,
right?
yeah, it's
Why?
it goes back
Yeah.
to there's a little, I think, with there being truth everywhere, but it all seems a little weird to all of us. We're all a
Yes.
little different. Everybody's a little weird, but
Well, and it's interesting
Who's to
because some of
say?
the stuff you hear and you're like, that is wild. Like people fully believe that, but then there's other things where it's like, oh, I can totally see
yeah,
why they believe that or how this connects. Or it's like all the connections was like, that story is very similar to that story. It's very similar to that story. And there's this theme that is
Yeah.
throughout all of it. It's like,
right.
how does that work?
What gets
Yeah.
Where
trippy
did
is
it
when
come
you look
from?
back on your own beliefs and go, I thought that, or I
Oh,
believe
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was really.
Then we also get into the other stuff too of like the non-religion stuff,
Yeah.
like the holographic universe type stuff, and people being astral project, and people being able to experience other people's feelings, and they can see people's energy and aura, and all these other human experiences that have nothing to do with religion, and that people have been talking about for thousands of years, right? And it's, well, where does that fit into a belief system?
Yeah.
Where does that fit into a religious philosophy? There's very few that encompass. There's none that encompass all of what we are, and then whatever is true and real, right?
Yeah.
So that's the approach from a what do we believe standpoint, and the overall goal for our kids, like our family motto is strong hearts and strong minds. So it doesn't matter what you believe, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you do. Are you sound here in your heart? Do you know who you are and what you're about, even if you don't know everything, right?
Yeah.
It's not about knowing everything. It's knowing that you are grounded in who you are. And then a strong mind is being able to not be duped, right? You have enough information, enough knowledge about the world and how things have worked to be able to not be duped by the current powers that be, right? You can be free, stand
for
on your own 2
yourself.
feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the anxious generation, I think we
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
sent
yeah.
that or talked about it, right?
Yeah.
But one of the biggest challenges is they don't know who or what they are. And so they're laced with anxiety and fear all the time. So then they go into depression. They have all these problems, right? Because of what social media has done to what we think of ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. The goal is provide them with, and let me go back a little bit. The guiding principle for me, at least in beginning all this, was Joseph Smith. Teach them true principles and then let them govern themselves. That's really what we try to do. And
Yeah.
in the process of letting them govern themselves, they're going to make mistakes. And then
For
we
sure.
follow through with, what did you learn? How do you feel about this? Is this what you want your life to be like? Okay, if not, then what choices do you need to make to prevent those types of things from happening, right? We are future-oriented beings. We're all goal-oriented. It's impossible not to be. So if you want X, you have to do
Right.
whatever else to get that. And if you don't end up getting X, then you go back and look at your actions and say, well, I probably had to do something different if I want to have a different result.
How many of your kids attend church right now?
Just
Or
Dash.
Just one.
Dash. Okay.
And how much have you told them about
Not he's not ready yet for all
Yeah.
of that, but he knows we don't go, and
Yeah.
he knows that there's a story there, but we've never tried to dissuade him or
Yeah.
tell him he should stay home and that that's the bad place. None of that
Right,
kind
right.
of stuff.
Yeah.
But you just say if he says he wants to go, or he just has decided that that's what he wants to do. He just
He likes it.
Yeah.
He likes the social part of it.
Yeah.
And he told us one day that, so he had turned 8 and we didn't baptize him. This was one of our fears of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're going to do this. What happens when Dash gets baptized?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So when
What are we going to do?
when you
Yeah.
stepped away, it was right after Layla got baptized. We waited until
was
she got
literally
baptized.
2 weeks
So it
after.
was like, okay, we'll do this thing. Then we have until Dash turns 8
Yeah.
to figure some things
Which is how
out.
many years?
3.5.
3,
Okay.
yeah, 3 plus. And so it was like, okay, so we've got this time frame before anything has to like
Isn't that such a
come out or be
mind like
announced
thing
or,
that you're
like-
just like,
Total mind
okay, wait, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
go.
Oh,
yeah. So it's like, okay, we've got a minute before we have to like deal with some of the social
Yeah.
pressures part of it, right?
Yeah.
And then that time came and it was like, crap, like
Yeah.
I got nothing other than I'm not going. And
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want him to because it's traumatic for me. And so we did decide that he needed to know some things. And so we did
Just
put
went
it
to the
off.
same process. I taught him the gospel.
Yeah.
I had this huge whiteboard, and I taught him the whole thing, the whole story, and the whole scenario and the narrative, right? And this is what we're supposed to be able to do, and this is the promise. I can't make that promise for you, and I'm not going to baptize you because you're 8, and I'm not going to let anybody else baptize you because you're 8. I don't care what they say. You have to decide this is what you want for your life. And when you're ready, great, I will support you 100%. I can't do it, though. They won't let me do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he did. He didn't get baptized right away. It was probably
I think he was 9.
it was
Well,
a year later.
He was old enough that they made the missionaries come and teach him.
Yeah, the missionaries had to come over and teach him the
Okay.
discussions to officially approve it. I was like,
That's
Yeah.
I'm not
interesting.
going to go there. Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so he did end up getting baptized, and her dad baptized him, and it was fine. It was great, and
Yeah.
people were there that had originally come and talked to me, and I'm sure they're wondering, like, what in the heck is going on with this family?
Yeah.
So
You're doing it right. You're letting them choose. You're letting them have the things that they want in life, right? Just
See,
like you said.
And the other side of it is I didn't feel comfortable him being there without
Yeah.
us, right?
Yeah.
Because like I wouldn't send him anywhere. It's not just the church. It's
Right.
like anywhere. He's little. I'm not going to just send him and be like, good
You'll have
luck,
all this
you know?
influence on him that I don't know what you're saying or
Well,
doing or
yeah,
whatever.
so I told him that I needed to know that he was strong enough, old enough, confident enough to be willing to stand up for himself, say no if he was put in a uncomfortable situation. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately it happens. It happens in the church.
sure.
It happens everywhere, right?
For sure.
Same things like I don't want him to go to the bathroom. I mean, he goes to the bathroom by himself now in a public place, but before it was like, no, your brother has to take you. It's like the same idea.
Yep.
So I'm going to do the same thing with the church because I've had friends who've had situations. So it's like, listen, until I know that because he's a people pleaser, he's a nice boy. And it's like, till I know that you'll stand up and say no, if you come into this situation, you can't go by yourself.
Yeah.
And I can't go because I can't handle it. And so we did wait till he was to that point. And so my next daughter, she's wanting to go too, but I'm like, you got to wait a little bit longer. You're not quite old enough yet. And so
Yeah.
it's more of that. It's just also keeping in mind their safety and me feeling comfortable with like, yeah, I
That's
feel
totally fair.
comfortable that you will be safe in this environment, even if weird things end up being put in your place, And when it first happened, so another side of with our kids, it was really hard because, I've been raised in this church. This has been everything. It's you don't realize how all encompassing it is until you take a step back. It's really amazing. Like I had no idea. Like I knew that's but you don't realize until you take a step back how it's in every hour of your every day.
Yep.
And so that was part of my life, was teaching my kids all of these things. And then now it was like, I couldn't do that. And so then there was all the guilt that comes with it. And there's all the judgment that is coming. And it was really, really hard for a long time where he would do some teaching because he was fine with it because he doesn't have the trauma with it that I was like, no, I can't like even be involved for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it came to a point where it was I was just decided that I was choosing my own mental health and my own time. And it's like, hopefully life is long. Like sometimes it's not right, but usually it's like there still is a lot of time left and it's okay. So if there's people who are like, you're in it and it's like, you're still trying to figure things out, it's okay. Just take that time. I'm focusing on other things with my kids. I don't do religion with them. It's just not something that I'm capable of doing. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm teaching them all the other things and they're great kids and we're having a good time and we're having a good experience. And religion is just not something that I'm currently focusing on with them. And they'll still get it. They're still going to learn things and they can still make their choices. But right now
They don't get theology. They get religion every day, which is this is the type of person we want to be.
Yes.
Right? You're honest, you're trustworthy, you're loyal, you're scout model type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're just a quality, excellent human being.
values and
Yeah, and I homeschool. Like we're doing those things all the time, and I think we do them well because I get to have that time with them that other people don't get have that. So I get to have that time with them. But yeah, as far as theology stuff goes, I'm like, I just don't know. You can ask your dad, or we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Well,
when I'm ready.
let's dive into your story then. So let's talk about.
I mean, I'll just keep it really short. It's just simple. Born and raised. I actually had a great experience. Like Dash likes going to church. I loved going to church. I had a really good experience. I didn't have a negative experience. There are things I look back on and I'm like, oh, I don't agree with that, or I don't agree with that, or there's things that I would have done differently, but I still, like, I understand too. It's like, everyone's trying their best. Like, I never felt like people were doing anything bad or wrong. Like, I just think everyone was doing their best and people are teaching things that they believed because they were taught those. And so there's things that I disagree with, but I had a great experience. I don't know at what point, I don't even remember. I don't think about it anymore, but
Was it after Kyle?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
after,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Some things that were simultaneous, but
You were all
Oh,
in.
you mean
I
like
I
after
didn't do
met him?
anything to
Or
influence
No,
her.
after his experience.
It was
I had
before.
mine. She did her
yours
own
was.
thing. I didn't tell her she needed to do anything. It was like, this is me. You do you. She was having her own challenges, so nothing I did was
before
to try
and
to influence
after.
her.
So I would say I started struggling before he did, for sure. Like there was a period of time, and honestly, I think a lot of mine just came from postpartum depression. Right. I think that I really struggled. My first two, I never experienced it. And my third one, I did, not super bad, but I did enough where it was like, I didn't really know what was happening until like later on. Then it was, you look back, you're like, oh, like I can see it now, but I didn't really see it then. And that's probably where some of it came in, where it's like, I just wasn't feeling the things that I was used to experiencing. I wasn't having impressions. I wasn't feeling like just all the things. And so I think at that point was when I was just doing the things because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I was like all in, or I was being told, or I was having any of these experiences. It was just like, yeah, this is what you do. This is what I committed to. We got married in the temple. We go to the church we go to the temple. And it was like, I just sit there and it was just like, I didn't want to be there. It wasn't like a bad experience. It just wasn't really anything for me.
Yeah.
But I was
Just
like,
wasn't
you
eating to.
just push through, and then you've got to think like, well, what am I doing wrong? And so then there was a lot of that pressure where it was like, it's got to be me. It's got to be something that I'm not doing.
Because everybody around you is doing the thing, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
You assume.
Yeah, well, because you're just told like you've got to put in the effort, and then you get you pray and you get the answer.
Yeah.
You are faithful and you're blessed. Like there's all these things. It's like, if you do this, then you get that. So if I'm not getting that, then it's like,
What are you doing
I
wrong?
must not be doing enough. I must not be giving. Like it's got to be something that I'm doing. And then what is it that I'm doing?
I think that's very normal in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
church with people. And
Right.
High
what's
demand.
taught and
And some people struggle with it and some people don't. And I didn't used to. It was just something that I think was associated with my postpartum depression. Probably messed up a little bit about how I felt and thought and all those types of things. But so it was more of a struggle, and I wasn't super happy with it, but it was just like, whatever. And then I had another baby and got really bad postpartum depression after the fourth. And with that one, it was really hard. And it was after there were some in here, like in the neighborhood, not in our ward, but just really close by. And she jumped out of the truck that her father-in-law, and she got hit. And I remember reading the story and going, I understand.
I remember that story. Yeah.
Like I didn't know her, but reading her story and some of the things people were sharing, it was like, I think I get why she did it. And
Because
it
of
wasn't that-
postpartum, hers was associated with her postpartum.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't that I was suicidal, but it was like I remember sitting in church and I'd feel so anxious. And I did have like heart problems and stuff when I was pregnant where my heart would just race like crazy and I would need to lay down so that I could breathe and all these things. And so being in a church type setting was stressful because it was like, wait, I get like, and so I get anxious. And so I remember being in church and it was like, I'm going to like run right through these walls. Like I have to get out right now. So I'd get super anxious. And I remember hearing her story. It was like, it could have been something like that where she was like, I got to get out.
I got to get out.
I got to get out. And you're not even thinking about anything. It was like, I was going to get out of the church and run. I have no idea where I was going.
Yeah.
I was just going to
Kinda
go run,
black out
you know?
almost, yeah.
And so I was experiencing that where it was like, this is not healthy, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'd be reading the scriptures and it was like, I don't want to read this. And so then I was kind of not doing that, but it was like, I don't want to admit that I'm not reading the scriptures. Like, then it's like, oh, well, that's why you're not having the experiences because you're not reading, you know, there's just the whole mind game, all the things that go around. But there came a point where I was just really, really struggling. And I had tried, like, I know that I tried, and I got to a point and I remember I knelt down and I prayed and it was like, I just need help. I need you to remove this. Like, it was just so heavy and so hard. And if I don't get emotional, it's one of the first times. It's been a lot of years, but it was literally so much darkness, not evil, but just like heavy emptiness that was there. And I was like, and I was giving everything that I possibly could. And I just stopped because it was like, there's literally nothing there. And it was at that point that I was like, this is unhealthy. It was like, I felt like I was in an unhealthy relationship. And if I didn't leave, I was going to just be really damaged. And so it was after that point, and I don't even remember where you are in your story here, but before he was having his things, like I remember when he told me about, I just got told to pull out. And it was like, I wouldn't have ever thought to do that myself, but I also was just, I was only going because that's what you do. It wasn't like I was all in.
Yeah.
But I was all in the sense it's like, no, but this is what we chose to do. Like, this is how we do life. This is what we're doing. So it's kind of intermixed that way. And he's having all these experiences where I'm having nothing. And so that was hard too. And that next morning I was just like, I have to choose myself. And to choose myself meant I have to step back. And it doesn't mean it's forever. And I don't know what it means. And I'm not claiming that I believe or don't believe anything. It's just, this is not a healthy place for me to be.
Yeah.
And so I just had, and I was really mad at God. It was like, okay, you're not going to talk to me. I'm not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Goodbye. You know,
Yeah.
we're on a break.
He understands.
Yeah. It's like,
Been
listen,
served.
you know what? And if he's real, if this relationship, whatever, it's like, you understand, like, you can't blame me for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did this to me.
And if it's not real, then it's like, then who cares anyway? So I was like, I felt fine with it, but it was really scary and it was really hard because everyone around us, you know, is part of it. And that's when you realize it's like, oh, it's in like my whole life, in every single part, and in the teaching of my kids and in the answering the questions. And, you know, my kids would be like, I don't know if I like believe this or that. And I go talk to your dad. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
And so now I can go like attend people's things at the church house and be like, we were laughing because I was coloring on my phone and Kyle was teasing me. He was like, oh, you're being such a screenager. I was like, I just gotta like disassociate just a little bit. I need to have a little distraction and then I can stay nice and calm and it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. I can relate with that so much because that's how I feel. On this podcast, she gave me permission that she's like, I can do it. I don't need you there with the kids and me. And I'm like, oh. And it was like this, like,
Totally free.
really? Okay, well, I'm good. Then I'm good not to go then, unless there's a kid singing or something happening.
Right.
And heavy emptiness. That's exactly the best term I've heard to explain how I feel when I go.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this, like, because I try to understand where people are coming from and how they believe things and how they understand things, but I'm just like, inside I feel like to some degree I'm screaming, but it's just this heavy emptiness. It's just like this, there's nothing here. There's nothing of substance here for me. And it feels like such a, not to hurt anybody, such an emptiness and such a waste of time.
Yeah.
Which is just my personal how I feel, and it's not comfortable. And I know we always talk about growing in uncomfortable things, but it is a place that I'm just like, I will get more out of listening to a podcast or reading a book than I'm going to get out of being here.
Or going on a hike.
Or a hike or a walk or my exercise. Like, I joke about this, but it's real. Like, my workouts are my therapy.
Sure.
Like, I am like, I'm happier in the day because I force myself to run a little bit or, you know, whatever it is. And and I had a friend kind of tell me that before. He's like, I'm like, why don't you go? At least go. Doesn't it feel good? Like, and I couldn't like connect it.
Right.
And then until I hit that spot and I was like, oh, I get it. I get why he like drives his wife to church and then picks her up and doesn't go, you know? And I know that's hard for people on the inside to look outward and just go, oh, you've lost the spirit. You've lost all this. And I go, well, no, I see God's hand in my life. And maybe it's not on a weekly basis. Hopefully it's a daily basis. You know, I try to connect and pray and everything, but there's these little things that happen in life that I'm like, there's more to that than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do still recognize and see that. And that's kind of what I think that's right now what I'm kind of holding on to is like, I don't know that we all know anything, but we can believe based on our experiences, kind of like what you were saying. Anyway, thanks for saying that. Heavy emptiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sucks.
It does.
Sucks.
That's why I choose not to go and experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, it's literally not a good place for me to be.
It makes me flaming mad too, because I don't understand why.
Yeah.
Especially people like you guys who are like,
I can relate with that too.
I'm trying, and you know, and there's all this grace and forgiveness and loving kindness that are supposed to describe who these beings are, and you don't see it.
Yeah.
Where is this? Where are you? That's my general phrase. I'm like, where the hell are you?
Yeah.
This is so dumb. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember a friend in the neighborhood, she told me about another person in the neighborhood who had left, and she went and had a conversation with her. And the girl, I don't actually know who she is, but I believe that I can't think of the verb or the description, but she's a perfectionist, but like
scrupulosity.
more than that. Yes.
Yeah, I dealt with that.
Yeah. And so for her being there and all of the way that things are taught, it was actually damaging.
Yeah.
And very, very unhelpful.
Yeah.
And she was going into deep depression and really, really struggling. And it wasn't until she stepped away and didn't have that pressure of being perfect put on her that she was able to be a functioning human being and actually have some happiness.
Yeah.
And I remember her telling me that story, and it was the first time where I was like, oh, like it's not actually the best place for every person. I do think it's a great place for a lot of people.
Yes.
I have a lot of family that I'm like, it's great for you. And I love it for you.
It's probably kept some family members of mine out of prison.
Yeah.
Like
right?
literally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We wish we were kidding.
But to
No,
that,
It's great.
that was one of the greatest. Sorry, I'm cutting you off now.
Well, no, it's just that was the first time where I was like, I had never had that like you're saying from people within. It's like, no, like you just come and at some point, you know, you keep trying and then at some point it's real kind of a thing. But it was like, no, actually. And Jess was always really, really helpful too, because she was just so.
Let me say this part. She
Go
would
ahead.
she would say to me many times that you were a safe place.
Yeah, that's
Many
true.
times. Like, and there's other people that she would talk to about it, but you were always a safe place.
I try to be.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
And that's not past tense. Like you are like in that time though, you were the safe place in from a friend standpoint.
Yeah.
There weren't very many safe
You
places.
cry, I'll cry.
Love you. I know, I'm really trying hard. Really trying hard not to. Notice that I'm just staring at him and not even going. Your
She's not blinking either. She's like, okay.
Yeah, are we done yet?
Stop
Leave
it
me
some
alone.
more.
That's one
No,
of her
it's
strengths for sure.
But having someone where it was like, she would help me know that it was okay. Because
Or just that it
hard.
didn't matter. It's like you're where you are.
yeah.
yeah.
And that's
And
okay.
it's okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, and to your credit, because we did talk a lot,
Yeah.
you mentioned one time that you tried to pray and it just wasn't there.
Right.
That wasn't your only time.
No. That
I
was-
remember you taking kind of like Kyle, where it was like, okay, I am going to give this literally every ditch
Yeah.
effort. I'm going to give this my all, everything I know what to do.
Yeah.
Like leaving and being by yourself. up in the woods. You know what I mean? Like you took, what was a whole week or a whole weekend just to be by yourself just so that you could be still and present and try and do the thing. And so to me, I'm like, what more do we want you guys to do?
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't give anymore.
Yeah.
One of the challenging narratives is the idea that there's a lack of faith.
Yeah.
Right.
Which comes up over and over again when things aren't going the way they're supposed to, right? Oh, you don't have enough faith. You don't have enough faith. You don't have enough faith. And I'm not going to go into that, but I do think there are reasons for it. And that's not actually what we think it is. Yeah. From the faith standpoint of things.
Yeah.
But,
well, that was what I was going to say is that was one of the, I think it may be back in the back of my mind. It was something I was hoping for, but I didn't anticipate feeling that relief, like that friend, like that person you talked about.
Yeah.
Of just like feeling, because I went and saw a therapist before. It took me, I would love to know the history of scrupulosity when it was actually discovered, because it isn't something I heard about until the last 5 years or so.
Same.
Until after I had gone to a therapist and been like, here's my life story. What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I feel like I'm good enough? Why can't I feel like I am clean enough? Why do I feel like I'm constantly sinning? Why do I feel like all these intrusive thoughts are just ruining my life? And yes, to a freaking, and that was one of the biggest blessings, I'll say, of backing away and just taking a minute for me and being selfish in my 30s with 4 kids and a wife, that I'm like, hey, we're going to do this. And now it may not. We're going to all just follow this crazy train wherever it goes, and just trying to hang on.
Meanwhile, your family eternity is in the mix, you know?
Yes, we're all going to hell. And sorry about your salvation. You can blame me in the afterlife. And right? It's just so, but getting past all that, I was just like, oh, I can still acknowledge when I mess up, but I don't have to fixate on it, and I don't have to, and maybe I should more, I don't know at this point. Well, drive her nuts. But I'm just and I got stuff to work on and fix and things,
but we all do, and that's the difference between the scrupulosity and being okay and you being a normal person,
but
letting it go,
taking the time for you. I think we're taught so much at church and in the scriptures of serve and give and be like Christ and do all that. So when you say, I just had to take a minute for me, I think that is so important for people in the church to understand. I used to be the person that was never turn down a calling. Sorry, Kyle. Never turn it down. Before I even left, I was like, you know what? No, there are people in our ward probably, or in church, that probably should say no, because your relationships are suffering. You're way more time. Not only are you going to work, then you're coming home, and you're not even home. You're at the church, and you're trying to deal with everybody else's problems, and your family's struggling, and there's a whole thought I could go on, but
you're right.
I think that there's just this imbalance of if I take time for me, then I'm being selfish, and that's not what the Lord wants or what God wants. And sometimes that's the only thing that we need, is to think about us for just a minute. Yeah. So what's the scripture? You have to take the mote out of your own eye. Sure. It's all you can't give from an empty cup. It's all that stuff of once you've given so much, it's just where am I? And you kind of lose your sense of self in a way. And so I feel in my mid-30s, I was redoing all that and rehashing and who am I? And I realized I still have all the same values.
Right.
I'm still I still believe in being honest. I still believe in being loyal and doing good and doing no harm, and I'm not great at it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Well, and I think
are perfect, but yeah.
I think to that note too, I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here, right? For you, it was you feel oh my gosh, this is taking so much, and it's there's so much that I'm giving. But I've talked to our bishop or whatever, and I was yeah, Hayden always feels so bad for you because you're just here all the time and you're all of your extra time and effort, and he's tell him not to feel bad, I'm good, this is good, so some people, that is, we said before, it is good for them.
Absolutely.
This aids in their life and who they're striving to continue to be. Yeah, it's great. It can be a great vessel. On the other hand, it can be very harmful.
Absolutely. It can be both. Yeah. I know that my mom spends a lot of time doing things like the temple, and it's so good for her. She
Yeah.
loves it, and it brings her happiness, and I'm glad that she has that in her life.
For sure. Yeah.
And I know that like when Kyle was going all the time, I was like, "Okay, so we've got a family," and, so it's like there it just depends, there's different times of life, different people, all
For
those things
sure.
too, yeah. But also, so it was really, really hard at the beginning for sure, for all the different reasons. It was devastating, but it gets better. It gets easier. You learn more. You start to heal and start all those things, and it does get better. And I have no idea where I'll end up. But right now it's okay. Like, I'm not worried about it. It's just like, I feel like this is where I need to be. So I'm really confident in where I am now, where it's like, yeah, this is a great place for me to be. And I'll learn more and I'll make choices eventually. But right now it's like, yeah, making that choice for myself, even though it felt selfish and scary and all the things, it was like, it's good and it's hard, but it gets easier.
Yeah. We said that before on here, just like that.
Yeah.
It gets better.
It gets
And
better.
before I was talking to some friends before I dove into studying, and that's what one of my friends actually said to me. They were on the podcast, the Gregory's. He said,
Oh.
it'll get hard. I promise it gets better. I'm like, okay. And I thought I understood it until I went through it, and then I really understood it.
Yep. Yes.
But yeah, you
Yeah.
felt, and I think everybody processes it differently at a different time frame, and yeah, it's kind of.
I think that's one of the challenges in any institution really any institution is the understanding that everyone is different.
Yeah.
It's one of the first principles of human action. People
Yeah.
are different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to behave differently. We're going to think differently. We're going to respond to information differently. We're going to respond to events differently. And it should never be expected that everyone have the same experience in any institution. And giving leeway and giving allowance for that idea of, yeah, you're different. You're going to connect in a totally different way. And this method may not be the right one for you in terms of how you connect or how you're supposed to connect or how you're supposed to believe or whatever, right? Same with learning. People learn in totally different ways than other people. So
That's always my thing. Math, you learn it a different way. Everybody has to figure it out. I can't do Common Core math. Come on,
I don't
Doesn't
think
make
anybody
sense.
can.
Oh, it's good to hear you say that. She's good at math, so luckily someone in the house knows how to do math. That's
No, but it's
Common Core isn't
we
math.
all need to learn it in our own way, and that's why that's why I think it just was easy for me to be like, awesome, okay, you're doing what you think that you need to be doing, so this is your path and what you need to learn here, So if you're doing and feel like that's what you need to do, good on you, and it feels better.
It does.
Feels better.
I'm so much healthier now than I was then.
Yeah.
Same, yeah.
Yeah,
Literally
it's
in
like-
every way, yeah.
Just
a really
imagine
good
if that's
place.
how it was in raising children, where they are taught and they understand the message, right? It's like, okay, I get it, right? And then you let them choose, and
Right.
they whatever it is they choose, it's still loving kindness. It's like, yeah, he's choosing something different right now. We're gonna support and love and whatever, right? To a point of, well, if you start killing people, then we're gonna have a problem, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
There's universal.
Yeah, there's some things, there's lines you don't
Truthfully,
cross,
but yeah.
right? But if it was a culture of, so if it was a culture of here's the information, right? Here's the offering, you can choose it. It would be so much easier if there were people where we could say that's your offering,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who those people are, those men and women that are holy beings and can do these wonderful things and claim communion, whatever else, right? That's our offering. We can be like that. I feel like there would be a huge change in the way people approach whatever we call truth, because there's examples and there's something to look to for that, rather than having some things to read and an institution to go to, and a lot of it ends up being theory
Yeah.
because there's not an actual practical result or example of it, right? I remember teaching when I was doing deacon stuff, and I would ask the boys, like, guys, what's the priesthood? You'll have it. What is it? What are you supposed to be doing with it? Who are you supposed to be? And it's like blank stares, right? They have no idea. They have no idea. And I feel like the reason for that is because there actually is no prep. like real prep, right? They're not taught and explained, and they don't see examples in their own lives of what this is supposed to be like. But if that was a thing, and then all these children that were raised up was done from the standpoint of freedom, here's all the information, here's what we claim in terms of what the offering is, and this what your result can be. But you have to choose this. It's on you. No one can choose this for you. You have to make this promise yourself and choose to not be like the world and be like this other, blah, 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 right? That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Like I've tried to play that scenario out in my mind so many times. Like, that'd be so awesome. It's such a powerful, powerful culture because it's free. It's based on freedom.
Yeah.
Right? It's truly voluntary.
And understanding what you're even doing.
That's what I mean. But it's
Like,
free, right? You're free. You have chosen this because it's what you want, and you understand the choice that you're making and the potential consequences of it.
Yeah.
Rather than being on a conveyor belt and you're just rubber stamping all the way down.
Yeah. I think of that in like politics too, of people that push certain agendas that don't understand the repercussions of the agenda and understanding what it really means for people.
Sure, like a grocery price freeze.
Yeah. It could be part of it.
Force them to sell at these prices.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's going to create unemployment and a whole bunch of other problems.
Well, one of them, that's probably that's a much the better one to talk about. But I was actually thinking about like the one that came to mind was like abortion, and in talking to a friend of mine that she's older now, but she had an abortion and then she had 2 kids afterwards, and it was one of her deepest regrets. And I'm like, how could you? How can you go push? Yeah, and if you haven't ever experienced that before, it's like, how can you educate just on anything, but like that topic specifically of like, hey, these are the potential issues you could have after making that choice, you know? Yeah. And again, freedom. I'm with you on freedom. I'm going to get there with my kids eventually. But
it's not easy.
No, it's not.
Because you have to let go, and you still have to deal with the consequences too, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
one of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
But yeah, just understanding what you're even doing and what is life and who are we, and anyway, all those classes that we need to be attending that we can't because we're gone half the month of September.
No, we really are. I know. I was
Actually.
like, oh, this would be so good, but
I need to get
we're gone.
Maddie over there. But yeah,
It's all
and
year.
myself.
It's
but
all year. So there's no.
we just didn't want to be the people that hopped in a couple classes and were reading and
Why?
Just
But
so.
she's
you're
we
fine.
don't-
Why
out
are
of
you
respect to
burdening
you
yourself
guys.
with that
You
perception?
just do what you can.
Well, if
It
you're
doesn't
really okay
matter.
with it, then
I
know.
don't care.
I told her,
It
I'm
is
like-
voluntary. Like,
Really?
I'm doing it for Layla.
yeah.
But it's so helpful for her to have other people engage in the conversation. So I
Yeah.
invite other people because I know the content's valuable, right? So I just invite other people, and I've sent it out to a whole bunch of people. And if you come, great. If you
Yeah.
don't, that's fine too. It's not like you're paying me, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're
Holy shit.
I know,
getting
but it's
tuition
more-
credits or whatever, right?
It's more, I feel like, that we would be like the unprepared students every time we go there and be
Well, she's
annoying.
I threw out, this is so bad, but I threw out hey, if you guys read, what was it?
50 pages a day.
50 pages a day till the end of the year, I'll pay you $1,000.
Okay.
And Maddie is like,
Just
earn the
in
value,
general,
or,
right?
in general.
Okay.
Read,
Sure.
and I'll pay you.
He
But
said,
that's a
"I'll-"
currency. We can turn it into a currency temporarily.
Okay.
Because I know they need to be reading books, and I know there's some downtime here that it gets used on phones a lot, and I'm like 50 pages is a lot. Maybe I'll.
Sure.
So we're figuring out what the currency per page is or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
if with those books, maybe those are the books we could start with. I told Maddie I get to pick 5 of the books.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
maybe that's too many. We might adjust that. But there's a few books that I definitely want her to read that I'm like, hey, these would be
Well,
good for you.
she's into it in like some of
Yeah.
the material that they're doing.
Is it Crucial Conversations?
Or what are you
those
starting
books
again?
That's
okay.
part
That's
of it.
later.
That's
Well,
later
if you
though.
really are cool with us coming to
really don't
classes when
care.
we can make it, then
Yeah.
maybe I'll even just send her over if we can't come
Totally.
if she's around.
What-
But
It's
chat.
voluntary. Like,
Okay.
if people aren't getting value out of it, don't come.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It wouldn't
Well,
be that at all. It would, like
But
I
that's
said,
the
it would-
philosophy, right?
She
That's
was
the
more-
philosophy.
yeah, she was more worried about if we came to the classes and then we're only
and
there every other week,
unprepared
and then
and here and
we
there
were
and
like,
everywhere.
don't give to the
Nope.
conversation.
And I send out the
Okay.
information before, like, here's what we're reading,
Yeah.
and if you read it, great. If not, the discussions are always valuable because people come with their own perspective on stuff, and we talk through a lot of different things. But it is not in any way. You should not burden yourselves with that perception of
Okay.
we're going to be the
There you
annoying
go.
people.
Yeah, that was it.
Definitely not.
And we have we're 6 days a week in football right now, and then somehow we threw in. Well, I have a work trip, then we have Lake Powell and
Yeah.
chaos.
Nice.
But
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like, why
busy.
did
We should ask
yeah.
them tips and tricks because
Yeah, tips and tricks.
they go every summer. We've
Do you
not
really?
been since high
Over
school.
Powell.
You
Yeah,
do
we're
Powell?
going we're going October, first week of October.
Oh, we're going last week of September.
Okay, so we
You come down early and drive our houseboat for us because we're scared.
You're going to Bullfrogville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in
We're
Wauwee.
going to Wauwee.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a 7-hour drive.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
I know. Isn't that crazy? I was trying to find a place to stay, and I was like, "There's Pages right there."
Yep.
No, it's not.
You'd have
like
to
3
get
or
on the
4 hours.
ferry, go across halls.
Yeah, no, it was not close. So
It's not
I think there's like a hotel to stay in because
Yeah.
you got to stay overnight because then you pick up right first thing in the morning, right? The houseboat.
We
Whatever.
just drive
Anyway.
super early.
Yeah, that's not.
I actually wouldn't mind it. I asked, I'm like, should we just drive down early? But
Yeah.
everybody else wants.
I don't
we're going
want
in
you
a
to-
caravan.
You've never driven a houseboat. I think we should
No,
be
I thought we
well
were talking about when
slept
you're just
and
driving
ready to
down
go.
the morning of, and then just getting there.
We
early.
leave at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
See, I'd be down with that. Then the
down
kids sleep, and I'm up early anyway. I could
Right.
do that. I usually feel better in the mornings, and just
It's so much better. We've done it the other way too, and
staying over, you just feel like
it's
I
just
worry
long.
about that. Yeah.
It's long. I'd rather sleep in my own bed any day of the week
Yeah, that's me.
instead of
I know.
going somewhere else.
I'm just gonna commit to being uncomfortable for like 5 days and nights, and here we go.
He's
Yeah.
like,
We sleep on the beach.
do you?
Really?
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
sleep on the boat. We sleep on the beach with our own beds, and it's great.
Really?
Like totally comfortable. There was one year we went and we docked in this kind of inlet, and the surroundings were rock. It wasn't sandy, so we just kind of anchored where we could. But there was this spot off the rock where it flattened out right on the water, and the water doesn't go up and down very much. At least it didn't used to. Anyway, we had this big blow up mattress, and we put it right on the water, like 2 feet off of the water, and that's where we slept for 5 days.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're going to sleep. There's the moon. The water's lapping
cool.
on there, and it's just
You
us
can hear
out
the
there. We're
coyotes.
the boat's
Really?
like 100
And
yards
the
away.
stars you can see.
Dude, it was awesome.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Powell's pretty. It's a magical place.
But never on the boat. Never.
Really?
Yeah.
On the boat.
Not comfortable, huh?
No.
Not for him. I'd be
Well,
fine.
there's too many people, right? There's like
Yeah.
35 of us going. So all the cabins are taking, which I would never sleep in a cabin anyway because the roof is
So short.
right there,
So
right? So
short,
it's
yeah.
claustrophobic. And then up on the top deck, it's just sardines of,
Yeah.
of kids and
Yeah.
people,
And
and
certain
people are
people
snoring,
snore
and
real
I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, yeah.
We go as far away from the boat as we feel comfortable with, and we sleep by ourselves. So that's
Sweet.
my
That's awesome.
recommendation.
All right. Yeah.
We do have a blow-up mattress.
Yeah.
Or a pad. Like I just have this big 3-inch thick pad.
Yeah.
That she likes the mattress, and I'm like, they're uncomfortable. My back hurts, but
Yeah.
We got the one from
Pads more
Costco that you
comfortable.
can like choose the 3 levels
Oh,
of
nice.
firmness.
Yeah.
But you have to plug it in too, so
Yeah.
I would have the generator or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
there was a thought I had when you were talking about kids that it was something that changed my perspective on it, with them making choices and stuff. So I don't even remember where it came from, but I had a realization that while they are my children, they're actually their own person.
Yeah.
They will get married, they will have their own kids, and they will not be connected to me in any way, right? I'll be connected to her for the rest of my life, and that's a different story. But my job for my kids is to train them how to be an adult as fast as possible. And so in order to do that, I have to step away of let me say it differently, I have to get out of their way and let them learn how to be an adult. So that was one thing I was like, okay, yes. And that for me was part of the whole idea of freedom. They are free right now. And my job is to provide them with instructions and then let them govern themselves, because they are going to be their own person very soon, right? Child rearing is very short
Yeah.
in lifetime, right? So that was the first thing. And the second thing was that there is a very real debilitation that happens when children are not allowed to be adults as soon as they can. In fact, there's a book, what's his name? Robert Malone, Robert Epstein. Yeah, Robert Epstein. So he's a data analyst, but anyway, he wrote a book that is called The Case Against Adolescence, and he talks about what's happened to specifically American, but kids in the last 100 years, where they have been de-adulted very quickly, and there's this phase of adolescence, which simply means you're not an adult. And kids used to become adult ability by the age of like 11 or 12, right? And in many cultures around the world, there was always some sort of rite of passage. There's some sort of ritual that children go through to become adults. It's not children to this endless adolescence, and then they eventually someday grow up and become an adult, right? They are prepped. They're trained. This is an event that you're going to go through, and you need to be ready for this. You need to be ready for this thing that you need to pass through so that you can then take on further responsibilities in your life, because you're your own person, right? So he talks about how American culture does not have that. We do not have a rite of passage for our youth, specifically boys. Girls, they kind of do because they menstruate, right? There is this thing that happens to them that can be prepared for. It's like, when this happens, you are now capable of being a mother. You can create life, right? Yeah. So it's like a whole different world, and they needed to be prepared for that, because people used to get married a lot earlier, right? Because now you're in your childbearing years. Anyway, but for boys, there is not a rite of passage for boys, for them to be prepared to now be an adult. Yeah. So for me, that's the other thing where it's like, that's part of what these classes are, is I try to take them through this thing where they can now go out into the world with their eyes open, and they know who they are, they know what they're about, they know what's going on in the world from a political standpoint, government standpoint, economic standpoint, philosophy, theology, religion, human nature, relationships, and they're capable, they're free, and they're now able to go and make their choices. And so those were the two things that I was like, okay, I can step away. Because before that, it was, very similar. It's like, I need to make sure they're behaving. I need to make sure they're doing all of these things and whatever else and else and else and else. And one of the things it did for me too was it allowed me to no longer care about what society thought about what my kids did, which is a huge parental fear, right? If your kid does X, that's your problem, right? It's a reflection on you as a parent. And in some cases it is, right? For sure, right? But in general, if we can be free from us paying the emotional price and psychological price of our kids' bad choices because they have been taught, then you're also free. And that was, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so freeing. But it's also huge responsibility, because I now have to prepare them so that they're capable of actually going out into the world and making choices. And then I just can't get in the way of the consequences of that choice being carried out upon them.
Have you put your classes online yet? Are you going to?
Start recording them.
Do a blog.
I do record all of them. So for if you guys miss one, I record all of them.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You can just go watch it. But
okay,
I've been asked that many times, and that's not the point. It's for my kids. Yeah, that's what it's for. But I know it's so valuable for them to have outside the house opinion, because everyone has different life experience, right? And we talk about stuff. People disagree, and we're like, oh no, but it's a safe place to disagree. And
you just call it Critical Thinking Courses by Kyle Roberts.
It's human excellence.
Oh, there you go.
Human excellence. It's how to be an excellent, fabulous, world-class, elite human being. Not because of your physical prowess, right? The greatest strength we can have as a human being, I believe, is in our emotional and intellectual strength, right? Strong heart and strong mind. So you don't get offended easily, right? Which is a hard thing to do. It's very easy to lose your temper. It's very easy to get offended at somebody and fly off the handle. It's relatively easy to do, right? Real strength is being able to take it and let it pass through you, or have it come in and respond in a way that is kind, right? We disagree, and it's okay. And if they're going to come at you physically, initially you take it, right? That's hard to do. That's so hard to do, to turn the other cheek, like really and truly turn the other cheek. That's difficult. But I think those are the type of people that the world needs.
Love it.
Agreed.
So
it's funny that you said that. I was like, oh yes, I'm doing something right. Because I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, my job is to like work myself out of a job. I'm supposed to teach you out of a job, right? Like my job is to make you a contributing adult, and that you can live life on your own. And so when they have, fight back, I don't want to do my laundry or clean the bathroom, I'm like, listen, that's all a part. This is all, I have to teach you this. Otherwise, who's going to do it? You're just, these are life lessons, but even down to, okay, your laundry has been sitting in here for how long? And there are other people that need to use this laundry. Like when you have roommates, they're not going to be as nice as,
or a spouse.
Yeah, oh yeah. So when you said that, I was like, yes, I'm right. Freaking, I'm teaching you to be an adult, in a different way. You're more mental and whatever, but still.
Yeah,
it's.
I'm an idealist.
Yeah.
I remember when I ran for office here in the state of Utah, and I was an intern for the sitting representative, just kind of helping him, just because I was going to see if I was going to do it or not for sure. But as we would talk about stuff, he would always say to me, "Kyle, you're an idealist. You're going to struggle up here if you get elected, if you win, if you really want to do this, because the way you see things," he's like, "not that I disagree with the way you see things, but the way you see things and the way it really is so different that you'll be frustrated every single day." And I was really disappointed when he said that, because I had all these aspirations, like, oh yeah, we're going to make the state more free, we're going to fight for this and fight for that and do all this stuff, right? And my brother ended up winning, and it was very eye-opening what he went through and what really goes on. And I was familiar with it, but he experienced it on a very direct level, and just the real challenge of the control and the very, very agenda-based lawmaking that happens. But in our family too, that's one of my biggest struggles. Is I see how it could be, and I see how I want it to be, and what the books say it could be, or whatever says,
Right.
And I'm always comparing, like, this is the thing that it could be, and this is what it is, and I can't close the gap, so I spiral down and get really mad. I've had a lot of boxing matches with my steering wheel, and it always wins.
I hate that.
My hands hurt, my arms hurt.
Did we finish up talking about your story?
Yeah.
I just thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all you wanted to share?
Sure.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that we came back. I was telling them that I wanted to kind of dive in. They've introduced us to some cool little things. So crystals, you guys.
We're an hour in. I'm getting really hungry.
You didn't eat one of these bars.
I didn't eat anything today. No, that's not true. I had a protein shake and.
Go get some food. It's fine. we can bring it down, eat it right here. I don't care.
Our kids too are upstairs, just sitting on the couch and waiting to be.
I just thought it would be fun.
I would love to do this. I'm just wondering if we do another episode, and we plan it out and do it in a week or two or 3.
Cool.
Next week, next Sunday.
Good.
If you're down.
I'm good for whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever you guys want to do.
Because we can go another
We could go another 5 hours. Are you
Yes.
kidding me right now?
My stomach is overriding whatever you're about to say.
It's 2:00. It's 2 already.
What? That's
I
fine.
didn't even actually realize that.
I didn't either. It's gone by pretty fast.
Oh, you guys are the best. I'm just glad that
Thank you for coming.
we can just talk for hours and hours. So
That's great.
thanks for coming. Yeah, we'll do.
It's great that it's a safe place.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad.
And I hope you guys feel that way too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I was
Cool.
just going to say
Just
the same
get that
thing.
stuff.
You beat me to it. So, anyway. Okay, thanks for coming. And
Kim,
let's
do you want to
talk
say the
cool
closing
things.
prayer?
Yeah, go for it. Please.
Such a jerk.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, you guys.
Cool.
You guys
All
are-
right.